Your profile share via email report story. Chapter 16 Realization. Izuku felt his breath fogging out of his mouth. It's been 2 hours since they've stayed there. The two felt a bit worried that they would be stuck there forever. Ochako spoke. Deku, her mouth chattering. I know, he told her as he tightened the hug, feeling Ochako's body getting colder and colder. He tried his best to warm her up as much as possible. Don't worry, I'm here. The silence came in, as the fire crackled in the area. Ochako looked down, with her stomach feeling tightened up. She felt her mouth trembled even more with her words completely blocked. She wanted to say something, but it was so difficult for her she couldn't help it but shut her eyes, ready to tell him. Deku-kun, why were you Avenue? There they are. Someone shouted from the outside of the cave, pointing a flashlight directly at them. The crew immediately helped the two and carried them by wrapping their arms around the back of their necks to give them support. What's the meaning of this? Mr. Aizawa asked sternly. Ochako then told him, I'm sorry, sensei. I was the one who crossed the rope and I was the reason why the two of us fell down because Midoriya tried to save me. Mr. Aizawa sighed with frustration in his voice. Is there anyone hurt? The lady nodded, looking at Izuku. Midoriya has a big cut in his arm when we fell down. All right, you will be taken to the infirmary immediately when we get back, Midoriya, he told to the injured student. Izuku nodded in return. Where are the others? Mr. Aizawa answered back while they were walking. They are currently doing the activity with Mrs. Joke, he then proceeded. As for you two, the two gulped and looked down, waiting for his answer. Are going to get the marks. What? Both of them said in sync, looking at the guy, stunned. Because of what I have just witnessed when I entered the cave. You two seem to appear with a fire next to you. That was your doing, right? He continued. They nodded in return. That was our activity for tonight, so I will consider giving you marks, but, because of you breaking the rules, there will be some deduction in your grades, he added, and the two frowned in disappointment. The crew used a big ladder to go back up the steep ground and to the main land. All of them then arrived at the place itself. Everyone, Izuku and Ochako's friends, saw them in surprise and immediately ran to them. Midoriya-kun, Iida said, running towards him. Midoriya, both Todoroki and Kaminari called as well, going to the boy, with tears of happiness in their eyes. You look awful. What happened to your arm? Kaminari asked in shock. Izuku chuckled nervously. Ah, well, he saved me when we fell down the cliff, Ochako answered for him. Really? The three of them said, looking over to the guy. Izuku nodded, shyly. Amazing, Midoriya, you saved Uraraka back there. Okay, that's enough, we need to bring Midoriya to the infirmary now. Oh, sorry, Iida apologized. Promoted stories. You'll also like Keyholder Boku no Hero Academia fanfic. 2672. First, there was ice. Pain followed. This is how it has always been. But when you're hurt and alone, will anyone come to help, despite all your missteps? Fumiko Hanab. You again. 122k 3.8k. Katsuki Bakugo did not believe in fate, but when Ochako Uraraka burst into the 1A classroom with big news, he was forced to reconsider. And oh, where Katsuki is 3E. I hate and love you. 249k 4.6k. An Izwocha fanfiction where Deku and Uraraka had a fight in kindergarten which led to something worse. But maybe they can be friends or perhaps more. Non-Quirko rated. Plus Ultra, Shoto Todoroki X Reader X Izuku. 843k 24.9k. Being rewritten. You and your twin brother, Katsuki Bakugo, have been close your whole life. Even through you two were close, you've always been homeschooled, for Rees. Mania. Katsuki Bakugo. 160k 7.4k. Mania UA. High is the birthplace of legendary pro heroes and a bountiful source of memories. Memories are meant to be cherished. Memories are what make our lives. The couples of Class 1A. 13.9k 421. Love is a tricky thing, and it's different for everyone. That is something the students of Class 1A quickly understand as their school life unfolds around them. Todoric. Lover's Day. Izuku Midoriya x Reader x Bakig. 181k 6.1k. Valentine's Day Competition. At your Hero Academia. What will happen when an innocent holiday becomes a vicious competition? Friends become rivals. Rivals remain Izuku was then taken inside the building with Mr. Aizawa. Ochako was with the others, asking her what was beyond the white rope and what happened to her and Izuku. Ochako just smiled, embarrassed, not knowing to say. And there was the blonde, angry boy, sitting next to the tree alone. He heard everything of what happened between the two, including Izuku saving Ochako back there. He gritted his teeth, clenching his fist. How are you feeling, Midoriya? Asked the nurse who treated Izuku. I'm feeling okay now, I guess. The nurse replied. You better be careful next time, okay? Izuku nodded, embarrassed. Sorry. The nurse smiled before she departed. You can go now. The boy nodded back and exited the room. He then closed the door. Midoriya? Someone called him. The green-haired boy looked over to the voice. Todoroki, Kaminari. Todoroki looked down. I'm glad you're okay. We were really worried about you. You know, Kaminari added, with a very dejected look. Izuku gaped his mouth and turned it into a smile. I'm okay. You guys, his grin was so sweet as he closed his eyes into crescents. The other two brightened up a bit. Come on now, we have to take a bath now in the hot springs, Kaminari told, with a smile on his face. Alright, I'll just go grab my stuffs, Izuku said. We will wait for you at the entrance, Todoroki responded, waving at him as he made his way to the place with Kaminari. Izuku then went to his room. But on his way there in the quiet corridors, he came across two girls, Ochako and Tsuyu, walking together. Midoriya-chan, Deku-kun. The two called him. Izuku immediately eyed at Ochako as they both made eye contact. Izuku immediately looked away and broke that contact. He then passed by them, without saying a word to her. Ochako noticed it and began to frown. Her heart tightened up, feeling it about to shatter. She doesn't know why she's feeling this way now. Every time she notices Izuku avoiding her, she would always feel herself being pulled down. Deku-kun, she whispered under her breath as she watched his back going farther away from her. After the hot springs, Todoroki was the first one to exit. He changed into his pajamas and decided to go to the garden area for some fresh air, while waiting for his friends. When he went out to the garden, there appeared to be lots of bright lights shining throughout the area. Around the place were pink blossom tress, and beautiful, gaudy flowers planted next to it. He was completely awestruck with the breathtaking view. He then saw someone far across the garden. There was another person on the other bridge, holding the flowers next to her. He bulged his eyes when he saw her. Momo, looking once again, beautiful in his eyes. Her mouth formed into a smile when she brought the flowers closer to her face and smelled its fragrance sensation filling up her cute nose. Todoroki can't help but stare. He felt his heart thumping louder and louder and his face blushing red. Suddenly, Momo took a glance of him and saw the guy. He quickly looked away and faced down to the ground and tried his best not to see her again. But after a few minutes of breaking the eye contact, Todoroki gazed at her again but she wasn't there anymore. Of course, she avoids me, he sighed, sadly. All of a sudden, he felt two arms wrapped around his waist, sending electricity through his body from the touch. I miss you. The voice. It was Momo's voice. That sweet tone in her that Todoroki had been longing to hear for weeks. Those words and voice makes his heart melt. I miss you too, he replied back, turning his body around to face her. Her face was full of sorrow and tears formed in her eyes with her cheeks completely covered in red color blush. Todoroki smiled at the sight, feeling his heart being tightened. He almost wanted to just hug her right in the spot, but he remembered the limit between the two. Instead, Momo hugged him. His eyes widened with the sudden action from her as she made it tighter. Todoroki was drained with happiness just by the hug from her. He missed her. He badly missed her. He hugged her back immediately, closing his eyes, feeling the warmth between the hug. I regret avoiding you, she told. I was just scared my dad would hurt you again. Todoroki's face became a serious one. Listening to those broken tones and sobs is too much for him. But I remembered that without you, it's just gonna hurt the both of us more, she continued. I'm so sorry. It's okay. I understand, he said to her, caressing her hair gently. Besides, you avoiding me doesn't mean I'll hate you. I'll always be there to love you. She let out a small faint laugh. She then sniffed a bit. I honestly don't want to get married with that guy my dad forced me to be with. Todoroki felt his heart skipped a beat as he looked at her face. She then continued, I really wanna be with you, Todoroki. Those words made him rejoice in the inside. Finally, after weeks of pain and avoiding, it has come to end. He has a chance to be with her once again. Don't worry, we'll find a way to fix this. He smiled at her, wiping off the tears in her eyes. She whimpered in front of him, which made Todoroki find it cute in a way. I love you, Yaoyaruzu. The girl smiled weakly, still holding her small cries. I love you, too, Todoroki. The moment felt so right, with his lips gaped a bit as he drew himself closer to her. His actions made Momo widen her own eyes by surprise, but this time, she just go with it. She brought herself closer to him as well. With their lips just inches away, they finally met. Neither of them made a move but froze in their position when they felt their lips touch. But Todoroki swiftly moved his lips and made the kiss deeper. Momo flinched a bit with his actions, but she gladly accepted and kissed him back more. The two kissing in a garden on a bridge was the best moment of their lives. They could feel themselves in another world right now. Nothing was there to disturb them, to break them. Their love for one another was stronger than ever. Momo broke the kiss as she saw Todoroki looked at her with disappointment. That was short, he complained. The other girl laughed a bit, placing her hands on his cheeks gently, staring at his glowing, sparkling eyes. We'll make it longer, soon. Why not now? Momo smacked his shoulder, annoyed. I said soon. She then pouted. The boy chuckled a bit when she did that. He then stared at her. I really miss you, Momo. The other bulged her eyes when she heard him say her first name. Those words made her heart popped as she felt herself blushing all over again. Who said you could say my first name? He leaned himself closer. Me, he told, because I swear I would make you my wife. Again, she felt her blood flowing even faster than before with the words he just said. Her mouth gaped and her blush reaching to her ears already. Promise, she asked him. His smile brightened up even more. Promise, everyone, each boys and girls has their own separate room. Izuku lied down on the floor with his bed mat next to his friend's. The night was feeling cold and he shivered a bit, unable to sleep. He looked around, carrying his head up to see the others. They were all sleeping soundly in the cold night. Izuku sighed. decided to get out of his bed and wore his thick jacket. He went out of the window door and leaned on the balcony outside. He felt the breeze flowing in his skin. It felt rather soothing to him. He then flinched a bit with fright when someone called his name. Midoriya-chan. He looked at his right to find Suyu on the other balcony. Suyu-chan. Why you scared me right there. Sorry about that, she told him. Can't sleep, huh? The boy nodded back. Yeah, there was silence between them as they looked at View. Suyu then spoke. Can I ask you something, Midoriya-chan? What is it? Izuku asked in return, still looking straight at the buildings outside. Why are you avoiding Uraraka-chan? Those words hit him hard in the chest and he gazed at the girl. Suyu looked at him with a confused look on her face. Why you knew? It's so obvious, she said. Back at the corridor, you were acting strange. Izuku figured. He, too, knew that he was acting very obvious in front of her. But he didn't do anything about it. Did something happen? She asked him. Izuku kept quiet for a while. Honestly, he was in a big mess. In his mind, it scrambled up with confusion. He didn't know what to do. It's just. His eyes saddened a bit. I just don't know what I'm feeling right now with her. And what do you think is that? The freckled boy looked down. I don't know. It's just that whenever I'm with her, I feel weird. Something I have never felt before. Do you seriously don't know what that is? He shook his head. Someone told me to avoid her. He told me to stay away from her so that these feelings will stop. But it didn't seem so. Suyu then told, Midoriya-chan, do you like Uraraka-chan? Izuku's lips formed into a thin line. Scared to answer that question. Firstly, is that, he didn't know the right answer. Secondly, he doesn't the truth. Thirdly, he's afraid about the truth. I don't know, was his answer. One day, Midoriya-chan, you'll find your answer. He nodded his head, but is avoiding Uraraka-chan the right thing to do? He shut his eyes, feeling more confused. He didn't know anymore. I don't know, he responded. Suyu sighed softly. If you don't know what you're feeling right now, consider finding it soon. Do you know what Uraraka-chan is feeling right now? His eyes widened and looked at Suyu immediately, but she wasn't next to him anymore. She seemed to return back to the room. He faced away, covering his face with his cold palms. His head filled with frustration. What am I feeling right now? An. That's all for today, y'all. And yes, thank you so much for 10k. OMGGGG, no words can describe of how happy I am right now. Thank you for your support. This story is not yet done LMAO. It's now halfway. YAYY. But yeah, sorry if this chapter doesn't have a lot of Izwocha. But I want to write moments of other ships and interactions with the main character. I mean, when is the last time Izuku and Suyu had a proper conversation? So I don't want any of the characters to be left out, so please bear with me, ha ha ha. But in the upcoming chapters, there will be Izwocha. I just have to finish the story with the other ships, okay KK. Okay, bye. See you next week. 3. Where Stories Live. Discover now.